Great day. I love to see people's faces. So if you're up to share your video, that'd be great for me. Kind of just personal, love to see everyone get some reactions. Um, you might see me staring off into the void. I'm just admitting a few more people in who might kind of trickle in over the next few minutes. But it's great to see everyone. Hello, welcome to the Parents Fireside Chat. I'm really excited to chat with you all. Maybe I can just kick off with a quick introduction. And again, apologize for me if I look distracted at all. It's just that I'm selecting a admit for a few people to enter in. I'm Steven. I'm one of the co-founders of Lumiere. Just a bit about myself, and then I'll talk a little bit about the structure for today. I want to start with the structure first, and then I'll kick off with a quick introduction of myself. So really excited to chat with you guys. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about three main things. The first thing we're going to talk about is a quick introduction of myself, introduction to the program. Second, we're going to spend some time, really the majority of the time, talking about the program itself, what it is, what it isn't, importantly. And then third, we're going to talk and leave a little bit of time for some questions at the end. And this can often usually goes around 45, 50 minutes. So we might end early. That's great. We might, take the full hour. That's also great. I'll also just note one quick thing is that I love chat interaction. Sometimes I will ignore it. But I like chat interactions, kind of just more fun and more interesting. So if you have anything you want to say, I see a hello, that's great. If you want to ask a question, make a comment, compliment me on my, neutral colored t-shirt, whatever it is, I'm open to all of that. And yeah, so I think we'll kick off there. But really nice to see everyone. Thank you guys for taking some time tonight, or if it's not night for you, then not night. This is a bit about what you can expect in the presentation. Okay. Cool. So I just want to quickly, before I jump in, introduce myself, because this is a big part of got a howdy. Thank you, Derek. I wanted to start by saying I'm really passionate about what we do with Lumiere, with research. I kind of grew up in a family of researchers, something that was a big part of my life growing up. My dad was a professor. He taught at the University of Missouri. I kind of grew up in Columbia, Missouri, where he taught and did research on things like happiness, mentorship, gender equity on board. And he actually grew up in a similar environment with a lot of researchers. His dad, unfortunately, never got to study college because he was a Holocaust survivor, left Germany when he was 17, so never got to attend college. But his dad is this guy, Fritz Kondo, I guess not literally the picture of the guy, but was a really prominent researcher in Germany in the 20s and 30s. Actually wrote a lot about. He was a physician, researcher, writer, kind of illustrator, and it's really interesting. My great grandfather, this guy Fritz, he actually got out of Germany during the Holocaust because Albert Einstein wrote a letter on his behalf to emigrate to the US because they were both researchers in Berlin and knew each other. So it's a really interesting, in my life, the research is something, I'm not expecting everyone to have that type of connection to research, but just something that I've always been really excited by, something really passionate about. My co-founder and I met at Harvard's undergrads, Dhruva pictured here, doing research. And then I went on, worked at McKinsey for years and started a PhD back at Harvard Business School right around the same time that we started Lumiere. But it's something that I am really passionate about getting students involved in. I think of research as being essentially just the discovery of new things in the world. So it has to be, for me, it almost structurally has to be one of the most exciting things that someone can do. And certainly I think it's something that I did in high school, something I did a lot in college, and something I'm excited for people to be doing. So excited for you guys to be here. I think you guys are already, if you're already in this session, then you're probably pretty nerdy and have something you're interested in. And so I'm excited for us to explore that. Today, I'm going to talk really high level, kind of structural, just so you guys know about what the program is and what's not. But again, if you have any questions, I'll try to address them as I can, of course, conversation. So Let's talk a little bit about what Lumiere does and what it is. So at the highest level, Lumiere is a selective and rigorous research program for high school students. We help students build an independent research paper by working one-on-one with a research mentor. The whole process is really centered around that relationship, where you're working individually with someone who's really getting in the weeds with you, deep diving into what are the projects that you're doing, helping you understand how to navigate research in that area, and then ultimately building research itself. We have a really awesome credit partnership with UC San Diego, which is, I think, just a great thing to help us add a bit of strength to the program, and something that we spent a lot of time also talking to admission offices and letting them know about the program, the rigor of the program, what type of students we admit. And then ultimately, a lot of our students, which I totally get, like I was in high school, I applied to a bunch of universities. I was trying to figure out what to do next step, also thinking about this in the context of their next steps, which is usually college. And I'll share a bit about this in a second, but our students have essentially been really successful in terms of their admissions. And I think that's a product of who they are. Like the students that get into the program, students that do the program tend to be great. But also it's a product of researchers being something that universities care about, naturally, because universities are the centers of research at the higher level. So talk a little bit about last year. This year, I think we expect this to be quite a bit larger in terms of application numbers. Well, last year we had 13,000 people apply to the program. That was incredible. We had, gave out over $1.3 million in aid. For us, I'll talk a bit more about financial aid in a little bit, but for us, we're really passionate about getting students involved in research, really regardless of your financial backgrounds. Last year we had over 400 students do the program on full financial aid. They usually, or they're always kind of lower middle income. The financial aid is need-based. And so this is similar to universities like Harvard, for example, or Stanford, or liberal arts colleges like Amherst or Pomona. So it's need-based financial aid. It's something that we're really proud of, and something we're growing really quickly, because we just want to get the best students regardless of your background. So if that applies to you, I'll talk a bit about that and kind of the requirements there. But essentially, the idea there is, if you have financial need, we don't want that to be a barrier for you to be involved in doing research. Pretty much it. It's also really, most of our students are based in the US, but we do have students really globally, which is so cool to see, and amazing to see kind of the distribution of talent, of young research talent, really spread all over the world. Talk a little bit about our mentors, and I'll just say that from the offset, that for Lumiere, I think our mentors are really at the core of the program. I'm a mentor for the program. Dhruva, my co-founder Dhruva, I should quickly introduce his background. He was a Harvard undergrad. He did the Rhodes. He finished his PhD. I guess I should call him Dr. Dhruva now. Must be nice, Dhruva. But I will not call him that. But our mentors are essentially incredible. They're coming from top universities in the field, usually top 20 departments in the research field. And these great schools, I don't have to name them out for you, but the reason why this matters is that if you look actually at research contribution by department, they tend to have somewhat of a right tail, where the top 10, 20 departments tend to be significantly more productive than other departments. And so these departments essentially filled with like really, really great talent. And that's why it matters for us to be recruiting from the best. Now, actually, I'm curious. Let's just go back a little bit. I'd love if you guys throw it in the chat. Could you just say what area of research you're interested in? I'm always curious to see what people are excited. Maybe just throw it in the chat. And if someone's walked off, I saw some kids have walked off, you can just throw it in for them. Christina, I was looking at you. Awesome. Okay, cool. Economy, chemistry, Metal 3, penalty biology, great. Philosophy. Excellent. Yeah. It's really cool to see this. I'm always like, first of all, thank you guys for helping me get a sense of who's in the room. And I think also for you guys to see the other students who are, applying to the program. It's really cool to see the range of topics. I think that's one of the things that for me is really special about Lumiere program, but also about research in general, that it's a program that really forces you to go deep into a topic, but that topic is deeply personal. It's a topic that you pick. Oftentimes it connects to something that you yourself have either done prior work on or want to explore more. Now, one question I get a lot is, do I need to know the research question before I get started? And the short answer there is that you don't necessarily need to know. Now, the more specific you can be, the better it'll be in the interview process. And by the way, some of you guys will be at different parts of the interview process for this session. Some of you guys may have already gone through it. Some of you guys may not have interviewed yet. That's totally normal and that's to be expected. So just so you know, you might be at different stages in the process. But the mentors plays a really big role in helping navigate the question. I would say that's like a big chunk, maybe 30–40% of the mentor's work is that first 3–4 weeks to help you navigate, okay, what can we take from your interest and how can we bring that down into a specific question that's tactical and feasible for us to answer over the next 12 weeks or over the next 16 weeks, whatever it might be, whichever program you're doing. So that's a little bit of some of the structure of what we'll do. Okay, excellent. Well, this is great. Thank you guys. Talk at a little high level of the application timeline. So the process essentially involves 3 main stages for us. There's a application first review stage. We send an interview invitation to some candidates. If you've received that, you then do an interview. If you do the interviews with someone on our admissions team. If you do the interview, then we evaluate your interview and we evaluate your application in combination. Then we take a decision on your application. If you're admitted, then we come to you and say, hey, great, you're admitted. We let us know if you want to take your claim a spot, whatever it is. I'll put you get some off the wait list, whatever. And then we'll come back to you with a mentor match. So at any point, you don't have to confirm until you feel really comfortable with the person who's actually doing the research with you and helping guide you in that research process. And for most of you guys will be launching in the summer cohort. Summer cohort usually launches in June. If for some reason you have something specific that you need to change that for whatever reason, you can of course let us know. But most students will be starting in roughly the first week of June. This is just the high level, so you have it, so you guys have a quick sense of what's. In terms of areas of research, students can do research in pretty much any area. One of the really nice things about us running the program for a number of years and helping to grow the program and getting more interest from students as well is that we've been able to really identify great mentors in pretty much every field. We haven't yet nailed underwater basket weaving. So if you're looking for that, the research opportunities there are a little bit limited, but other than that, I think we should be good. I would say that I just want to say a little bit about, what I think is true about the program. We do, and I'll talk a bit about the structure in a second, do a lot to support you in your research. So you have a full-time writing center that's supporting you to, help you build a research paper, give you edits. We have a really clear structure. We have timelines. We have online resources to help you get research papers. I see people asking about past successful projects. I have papers, abstracts. Absolutely, we show you exact past papers you can base them off of. There's so many things that we're supporting you in those things. I'm in the weeds thinking, okay, like what's our completion rate? What's going on? But at the end of the day, the most important thing that's going to happen is your relationship with your mentor, the research mentor that you have. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about who the mentor is, who they can support you. And when you're thinking about the program, I do think you should think a bit about like that mentor match, because that's going to be the thing that's going to make your summer really successful or not. So I just want to be honest about that we're really structured and, kind of quite rigorous program. But at the end of the day, that mentor is really the thing that's really going to drive. So just talk a little bit about some mentors. I'm just going to say some quick examples of people. Bhargav's amazing example. Just finished his PhD at Columbia, has been mentoring us for 5 years, just an incredible person. he takes on one student each year, like one student, super dedicated. He dives deep into them, dives deep into the research with them. And one of the things that I'll just give a quick example of what Bhargav's done. One of his most research students actually, he mainly does research in labor economics or associated areas of economics. One of his students recently actually got published in the Cornell Undergraduate Economic Review, and this was for a high school student. So really, really impressive. Actually, the first high school student to ever get published in that journal. They actually did contact us afterwards, and they were like, "Wow, we actually didn't realize he was a high school student." So there's a we really hustle to make sure that students are getting into the best places, and it's really quite funny actually. The level, I think, genuinely, the level of that students are creating is, really at the college graduate level for students. There are people like Sana. Sana is just, by the way, so fabulous of a human. She's at Yale doing her PhD. She mainly works with women who are studying physics, particularly kind of astrophysics, cosmology. And she is just such an incredible, warm, caring person, and it really is like someone who gets in the weeds with students and gets very tactical. A lot of her work is uses more like advanced data science, machine learning methods to do things like detect exoplanets. We've got a number of students who have done pretty rigorous papers, essentially using machine learning algorithms to detect exoplanets. It's really, really interesting. I see a quick question on publication. So it's a great question. We have programs that are focused on publication. I'll talk about that in a second. And those programs, you're going to be most likely to get published. All these publications are external to us. And these are all rigorous publications, or all publications that have a peer review process. Some are at the high school level, some are at the university level, some are at the graduate level. So it depends a little bit on the quality of the paper. If you're not doing a publication program, you certainly can still publish, and we support you with kind of resources there, opportunities to think about which places to submit, but we're not kind of as much in the weeds with you in that process. So that's just a little bit of difference between the programs. Quickly on the student mentor match, we spent a lot of time thinking about this. Ultimately, we're thinking, first of all, about the field level match, and then we're thinking about things like the experience that you would have, kind of a personality fit, who are they, their background as well, and then essentially that connection between you. For students who completed the program, this I think is an old stat from the year before, but we've already had 9.25 out of 10. I think students tend to love their mentors. I think this is now like 9.4. But this is all to say that mentors are really great, and it's really important that you have a good mentor. So historically, students had a good experience with their mentor. I'll just talk about this briefly, about the program structure. So there's a couple different programs that you could have applied to. You may have also applied for the Junior Explorer program, which is also part of this parent session, but that's a bit for a younger student. And but just talking about this, the main difference I would say is between the individual research program and the publication program. The core difference there is around who the kind of the end goal and end result, which is around whether or not we're helping you submit to a high school or college level publication. The fellowship programs are someone who's kind of looking at usually higher level journals, things at the college level, or maybe doing ISEF or General on one of these. And then the professor program is, we've gotten some requests for students to work with a kind of tenure faculty members, totally get that. And this is for students who are looking to have that opportunity. I see a question on changing the programs over time. So yeah, so certainly if you can, it is possible to change the program. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. I would recommend, though, if you are thinking about targeting publication, then I would consider, it's easier to, I think, to go from a longer program and go shorter than shorter to longer, just because if you're taking a target that is more ambitious, let's say you're trying to do ISEF, or let's say you're trying to submit to publication, the type of research you might do will be influenced by the amount of time that you have. So for, let's say for ISEF or General, which is this, for those who don't know, it's just it's a really rigorous science fair project for high school students. there you usually need to be doing some type of independent, of course, independent research, and then some type of individual data analysis if you're going to be doing this type of paper. And so there we'd want to know that from day one for us to think about, okay, what data sets should you be getting, et cetera. Otherwise, we might think about literature review or other forms of research. Yeah, the professor publication versus the research fellowship, the main difference there is the number of sessions. Professor program, you're working with a professor. In the fellowship program, you're working usually with like a PhD student or a PhD candidate, someone like a bit more like myself, for example. But hopefully in your area of research, if you're doing physics research, then it'd be a physics researcher. And then you asked a question around, do we get to choose what university we want the faculty member from? So the way the program, the structure works is that we'll come back to you with who we think could be a good match, just talk about the matching process. And that's based on the mentor, the area fit. First of all, that's the most important. And then if there's, you have other preferences in terms of where they're based, school, whatever, we can sometimes take that into account, but we're ultimately trying to think about who's the best fit for you as an academic. That's the first order of business. And then we think about things from there. Okay, I'm going to keep on pushing, but then keep going from there. We also run Junior Explore program. This is for middle school students. This is essentially for students who are looking to get a taste of research and are hoping to build something with a mentor. It's a very similar structure, but is essentially tailored with a final output that's much more reasonable for middle school, 6th through 8th grader. So if you find yourself in that grade group, that's probably the program that you apply for. Otherwise, similar things. So let's talk a little bit about financial aid, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well at this point. So one of the things that we're really proud of is our financial aid program. It's something that is grown a lot. It's something we dedicate a lot of resources to. In 2022, we launched as official nonprofit, Research Inclusion Foundation, to bring in talented students. The program for the foundation is completely free. So the idea there is, as I talked a bit about, like above, I had some tuition prices. For financial aid program, most students would be unable to pay, and so for students who are part of the foundation, then you do the program for free. And I want to just talk a little bit about that. The reason why we think that this matters is that I think a lot about the different experience that Dhruva and I had. For me, I grew up, as I mentioned previously, I grew up in a family of researchers. My dad, was a business school professor, had lots of connections. I did research in high school with one of his colleagues. I kind of had completely the inside track, if you will. And I think about Dhruva. Dhruva grew up in a family where he didn't know any researchers. His family had engineers in it, lawyers, but he wouldn't be able to afford to do any. He wasn't able to afford any summer program. He grew up in Chennai before he moved to college at Harvard. And so we think a lot about Dhruva's incredible. And if you guys get the chance to listen to Dhruva talk or talk to Dhruva, you'll know he's just an amazingly talented person. But we think a lot about how we can increase access for students. And I think, by the way, that this is something that we know that a lot of mission offices know about us and recognize. And if you're thinking about this program from kind of your next step perspective, we spent a lot of time investing and making sure that our students are just the best students in the world. I'll talk a bit about some of our outcomes as well there. And so this financial aid program also supports that we just bring on the best students regardless of your financial background. Okay, that's a little bit on the financial aid program. Happy to answer any questions on that in a bit. So the financial aid program is just for students who are low or middle income, really low income. So usually families making under $70,000 a year. So you'd have to just think a bit about, you could use the 70,000. If you put out a positive, probably we have judged that you're not in the financial aid cohort, but okay. Let's talk a little bit about the structure of the program. So the program is really broken into two main parts. The first part of the program is I would think about this as being helping you identify what you're going to do research in. And the second half, really 2/3, is about actually doing the research itself. So this is essentially the two parts of the program. Now, within that, there's a number of tactical goals that we want you to achieve, and these are essentially deadlines. What we found is that having smaller, like, to be honest, one of the things that I've experienced when talking with students is the idea of doing research can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming. And it feels overwhelming often because it's a little bit amorphous. It's not clear, what do I need to do? What are the steps we need to take? The program is pretty structured to take this kind of like big question, which is like, I want to do research, and make it into tactical steps that you're going to be taking in the process of doing your own independent research. So by week 3, we want you to identify a research question. By week 4, you've submitted a research proposal. This is something that gives us a high-level overview of what you want to do over the next 8 weeks to then execute on your research. It could be independent data analysis. It could be, say, hey, I want to do, if you're doing qualitative research, I want to be interviewing these people. And it could be, say, I want to look at these papers. Whatever it is, that's roughly what you're doing the research proposal. By week 5, you're outlining your paper. So you're getting a sense of, okay, what would the different components of this require? By week 7, we have part of your paper due. By week 9, you're looking at a draft, and then we're going through some final drafts, editing. Usually you're submitting to the writing center. They're giving you feedback. It's pretty tactical on the writing you've done, and then you're completing the paper. This is for the kind of independent research program or individual research program, IRP. If you're doing the publication programs, this structure pretty much holds as well. But at the end, we have your research paper, and then you'll be working with a publication specialist to help navigate the process. Okay, like, hey, what should we do next? And what type of research journals should we be considering submitting to, whether at the high school or college level or graduate level as well? I see a quick question, Neil, a great question around mentor flexibility. So yeah, certainly one of the great things about the program is that it is individual. Like, you're working on your individual research with someone, and that means that there's a good amount of flexibility. If you want to take an extra week, that's totally possible. If you want to, take a week off, that's usually fine. I find that during the summer, people often have other plans as well, and they're doing this program in parallel with other things in their life. That's totally okay. We expect you're putting at least 5 to 10 hours of work per week into this. I think that's probably the minimum bar for you to be successful in completing the research. But if that means you spend a week or 2 doing another camp and you're offline, that's totally fine. If it's extending to like 3 or 4 weeks, then we should talk a bit about that and how we might want to delay your program. Excellent. So you asked a question about selectivity of the program. It's a good question. So I don't have the exact numbers. Let me see if I have it somewhere in this presentation. But last year, I think of people who applied, we ultimately admitted about 35 to 40%. I think about 35% of applicants, to give you a sense of it. So certainly selective. What we're looking for there is, we don't have like so just to talk about selectivity is, for us, the program is, we really want to get great students involved in research, but I don't think research is the right thing for all students. Like, research is really hard. It's ambiguous. It takes a lot of work. It requires a lot of dedication. So in the interview process, I'll talk about what we're looking for there. I should say that's, by that, like 35% is kind of our overall average. Our summer cohort, especially since this is our second deadline for it, it gets increasingly competitive because our number of slots with our mentors decreases. So just a heads up there. But what we're really trying to do there is trying to get a sense of who you are and if we think you could be successful. And of course, we have a relationship with our research mentors as well, and trying to think about, like, would you be a great mentee for this mentor as well? So that's the other thing we're thinking about. Anita's asking a question about starting early. Yeah, so if you want to start a little bit early, you certainly can. You just need to reach out to us about that. Give us a heads up, like, hey, I'd like to start early. And we can usually accommodate that. We need to talk to your research mentor as well. So let's see them if they're okay with that too. But otherwise, it should be okay. The fellowship program is a very similar structure. I would say just the quick thing there is that it's the same structure, but a little bit stretched in the sense that you have more sessions with your mentor. You spend a little bit more time with them, and so ultimately, you spend a little bit more time building up context in the field before you then deep dive into actually building the research itself. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about what the program is and what the program isn't. I think that's really important. So just talk a little bit about what the program is, so we think of ourselves as or the way that we think about the program is we want to bring on young, talented researchers to do usually, actually, I'm curious for people, and maybe you can throw it in the group chat, like, if you're a part of the program, will this be your first time, second time, third time doing research? Can you just throw it in the chat? Just put like a 1, 2, 3, put your number, like what time research? No, first, second. Okay. Yeah, excellent. So yeah, so we expect that I think our stats are that 90%, 95% of people are doing research for the first or second time as part of the program. And so we kind of recognize that. However, we do think of you as a young researcher. So that means we're providing world-class guidance. You're working really deeply. We're getting structure. We know that you're coming from different backgrounds. That changes kind of our end goal, also your research paper, also what your final topic is. And we also want this to be fun. Like, one of the cool things now is seeing our alums go on and do PhDs, which is like crazy and cool. And some of our alums are mentors, and it's like amazing. So we want, to get you in, not everyone who does Lumiere has to do a PhD. I'm not saying that. And certainly some parents may be mad at me if everyone did do a PhD, but we do want students to be researchers, whatever that means in your life. And so we want this to be a fun experience for you. Now, what does it also mean that we're not? We're not a tutoring center. And that means that there's going to be independent work. That means you're going to spend time working on something, reading things, struggling with, your code, whatever it is, like, and that's going to be the experience of a young researcher. So now, that said, we're going to be with you at each step. If you ever get stuck, we're always there. Well, your mentor's there, our writing center's there, your program manager's there to support you. But there is going to be independent work that you're going to need to do. And then ultimately, we don't expect everyone to do the exact same final project. There's a lot of different things that you can create. We've had, you can see on our website, you can also see past papers if you're admitted as well, that students have just done an amazingly diverse range of final projects. And that's great. Like, that's what to be expected. And research itself has a lot of different components to it as well. Now, on the student expectation side, there's a few things we expect from you. Essentially, the high level of this is that we are expecting you to act as a young researcher. So what that means is that we're expecting you to be communicating early, often, using email as a young researcher would, responding quickly to us. It also means that you're respecting your mentors' meetings time. Your mentors are really busy. They're doing a lot. So if you need to reschedule, that's okay. It's very individual, of course. But ultimately, we'd ask you to do that about 48 hours in advance. Deadlines are really important. So if you're accepted the program, they're both deadlines set by the program as a whole, but also deadlines set by your mentor. And these are often interim deadlines, like, hey, we need to read these 3 papers before we meet next week. Or, hey, I need you to download this data and do some quick exploratory data analysis before we meet next week. That's the type of thing that you'll be asked to do. And it's really important that you do that before the meeting. And then finally, all of the work needs to be yours, needs to be original, properly cited, etc. This is really important for us. Now, we also have parent expectations, because if you're a parent, this is for you. We see you essentially as partners in the program. And just quickly on that, like it's kind of funny, actually. I've always thought about this, like, as a program, we work really closely with your student on their research. And so we get a really deep dive view into this one piece of their life, which is their academic piece, and how they're working through a research paper. Now, there are parts of their life that's maybe a piece of their life that you don't see. Like, it's hard for you to, a lot of parents, it's hard for them to see what is the academic work of my student. We'll be communicating that back out to you, whether it's physics research, economics, whatever it might be. On the other hand, there's often things that are happening inside the house, just lived things going on that it's hard for us as a program to get exposure to. And so if there's something that's going on, whether something that's useful for us to know, we really ask you to share that with us. And sometimes it's hard for students to tell a mentor, hey, like, I don't get this thing. And I've totally done that. I've done that with my faculty mentors, where I've been like, yep, totally got it, I'm all good. And then I'd go back, I'm like, ugh. And so if you guys see that and you think it's, and you can share with us, it's really helpful, so we can help to just make sure that students are getting in the right path. I saw some questions on this. I want to talk a little bit about our partnership with UC San Diego. So We have this great partnership with UC San Diego. It's with their extended studies or post-baccalaureate credit program. Essentially, they've gone through, reviewed Lumiere, understood it, seen some of the outputs from our students, and have given the opportunity for students to get post-baccalaureate credit if they choose to as part of the program. Now, the post-baccalaureate credit, it's, for us, this is a great way, kind of like a cherry on top to say, hey, like, here's something, here's another signal of the rigor of the program that you've done. It's certainly not required. And the credit's purely optional. I'll just say a little bit about post-baccalaureate credit that UC San Diego gives. So it really depends school by school as to whether or not they accept it. It's a common question I get. It's kind of like, I would say like APs, frankly, where it's unclear. You know, some schools take it, some don't. For example, Harvard as undergrad, I did all these classes at University of Missouri, also a bunch of APs. Harvard did not accept those classes. So, but what can be used for often, what I've seen students do, is use this to skip classes. Maybe take, you know, if you've done something in economics, maybe you can skip that economics class and use that credit as a way to do that. So it depends a little bit school by school. I would just say that's like the biggest thing there. You have to check for the school that you ultimately attend. Yeah, that's it. Ultimately, there's the cost of the program. This is to UC San Diego has a cost of their credit, just so you know, and we'll share you some details on that, but it's totally optional. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of our student profiles, and then I'll wrap up with some other quick things and some quick questions. So our students are really talented. Just to give you some quick tangible examples. Or Otis did this really interesting research project on different therapeutics around Alzheimer's disease, particularly humanin. And his research paper was really successful. He ultimately got it. He was accepted to the MIT Think competition, which is this really selective competition at MIT. I think they accept about 10 to 12 students each year. They actually fly them out to MIT to then present their work to faculty members and often continue it forward. Just super talented. They really like Alexandra. Alexandra's super talented. I think she's at Harvard right now. She ultimately published her research and is just crushing it. There's also someone like Zunian who's had his research in the Cornell undergraduate economic degree, which I mentioned earlier. There's students like Lily. I'll talk about Lily. I think Lily, I saw a question earlier about recommendation letters. I think Lily's a really interesting example, and actually an example of the type of rigor that universities place on doing research in high school. Lily did this really interesting research on particle physics. Her mentor and her had a great experience. Her mentor really had, by the way, on mentor letter of recommendation, you can certainly ask your mentor for a letter of recommendation. We don't require any mentor to write a letter of recommendation. I think most mentors, if you do a good job, will be happy to, and that's what we've seen in our data. About 35% of students will receive a letter of recommendation from their mentors. And because we do a lot of interesting data analysis of like admissions, what happens to students. Lily's a really interesting example, actually, where her mentor wrote a letter of recommendation for her. He was at UChicago. And then the Princeton admission committee actually called her mentor to talk about her research. So they had like a 20-minute conversation about the research that Lily did. And Lily was ultimately admitted to Princeton. And so I think that just says a little bit about the way that research is valued in universities. Now I serve as part of the Alumni Association board for Harvard. And what I've observed for universities, talking to administrators, is that in universities, and this is kind of like just like an insider's baseball thing about universities, is that they really do have this dual mission of bringing on the most talented students, usually for their undergraduate programs, also for master's undergraduate programs, but then also doing great research. And so because they have this dual mission that got combined into the institution themselves, they really value research, and they also have a real ability to assess research quality. So for example, like Harvard, for example, if you submit a research paper as part of your application, they'll actually, and you get to kind of get past the first round, you get into what's called the committee stage. They'll send it to a faculty member to then review it and then get back some feedback on it. So just to give you a sense of like the importance that's placed on research, because it's seen as kind of the pinnacle of academic studies. There are people like Ria, who's also kind of more cosmology, astrophysics research is at UPenn. And then also, just because I've been talking a lot about STEM, different things, would be like Theo, who did this super interesting project. This is really a kind of economics, international relations paper, looking at the strategy of Europe to counteract the growth of China and the US in terms of building AI models and their applications. Here's some of the publications that students have done. I talked a bit about publication in a second ago. Students tend to do really well. I think I saw a question on like percent of students that get published. The way that we think about it is if you complete your research paper, then it's somewhere in the order of like 80–90% of students ultimately get published in some type of research paper. Again, there's probably different levels. There's high school level, college level, graduate level. The quality of your paper will dictate which journal we target. And we have a full-time publication team of 6 people who are like thinking about like, hey, how can we help you navigate this process? They're spending a ton of time on that. But they're just to give you a sense of, I think a lot about like when I think about research, first of all, I'm really excited for you to go and do the research, but I'm also like I was in high school, I was thinking about things post high school, and I totally get it. The desire to go through the publication process, peer review process, actually really interesting and difficult. And so I think it's something that if you can, I would suggest you guys go through as part of the program or later on. Okay, yeah. Publication process, just give you a quick sense of it. If you're part of the publication program, if you want to do it independently, usually what you do is you submit to a, I see a question. So just quickly on it, you submit usually at week somewhere between 12 and 15. And then publications have some variation in terms of how long they take. They can take anywhere between 1 to 3 months to get back. If you're a junior, you're a rising senior, then we also recognize like, hey, I'm thinking about college. Like I would love to be able to showcase something. And so we think about publications where usually that timeline can work out, just so you know. If you're not part of the publication program, then certainly we help you give you some guidance in terms of what publications you can target, what those publications look for, what example papers have been, but we're not as like hands-on with you as well. Yeah, I see a question on the social science humanities. So actually, Anita's asking like, hey, is it hard to publish in the humanities and social sciences? I don't think it's actually, I will say there's a slightly fewer publications. That is true, Anita. There are slightly fewer publications. That's something we've identified as a team in the social science and humanities for high school students. That said, a lot of students get their research published in humanities, social sciences, economics, international relations, law. And you need to just showcase rigor in different ways. Like in qualitative research, the ways you show rigor are just different than in a quantitative research paper. So you need to show like, what was my interview guide? How did we approach it? Who did we speak to? How many people did we speak to? Things like that. I used to ask a question of those papers I excelled, were all these done in a publication-focused program? So I think about 3/4 of the ones I just shared were in the publication program, but some were also in the IRP. Yeah. Cool. So students, I talk about publications, but there's a broad range. Again, there's probably 3 main levels: high school level, college level, and graduate level. We'll target the level based on the level of your research and the essentially what we see there. Talk a little bit about our alums. We're super proud of our alums. They've absolutely crushed it. Actually, I was so happy this past fall. We had 8 students who got admitted early decision to Harvard. So it was just really cool actually to see that. I have a soft spot there. But in general, our students tend to grade. When we look at our students, they tend to do 3 to 4 times better than the general pool to be, when they're applying to these universities. So they tend to do really, really well. I would say, by the way, that's a reflection of a number of things. Certainly research is a part of it, but I think any program should say, hey, you do our program, you're going to get into any school. I think that would be, totally incorrect. Our alumni are also just great and talented, and they would probably do well as well. But a lot of them tend to do well, and we see that our alums do better than the average population in general. Just quickly about our timeline, and then I'll wrap up and leave time for maybe 5–10 minutes of questions. I shared this slide a little bit earlier, just so you know, this is the process that you guys will be going through. If in any case, roughly the timeline is that you would hear back about interviews, usually within a week. You then hear back after the interview, again, probably within 4 to 5 days of that. And then if you're if so, then you're like, hey, I'd like to go forward, or you're say, hey, like let's move forward. Then we come back to you with who we think could be a good mentor match, usually within a week time. The mentor match is can take a little bit of time because we're talking to the mentor and also coming back to you about, hey, like we're talking to them about your profile, saying, hey, here's what we think could be a good fit. And then coming back to you, say, here's what we think could be a good mentor. And of course, you're saying, hey, this is a good fit or not a good fit. And that's, up to as well. Finally, let's just talk a little bit about the interviews if you haven't done the interview yet. What are we looking for in candidates? First thing we're looking for, academic excellence. We're looking for students who are doing well in school and who are excited by the topic they're doing. Curiosity is a really important one. I would say it's actually the distinguishing factor in most of our interviews. One thing I would say is that the more specific you can get in your interests or your past experiences, that's going to be that's going to serve you well in the interview process. So trying to think about ways that you can talk about why you're interested in this thing, what is it about it, and what have you done to already look into it. And it could just be like, I've just gone really hard on ChatGPT and like asked a bunch of questions. Like that's okay, but showcase kind of that effort that you've put into it. And then finally, we're looking for evidence that you've done independent work in the past, because I mentioned this program does take a lot of independent work for you to be successful. I see a question: how many students do a particular mentor take on at the same time? Over the summer, on average, our mentors take, it's 2.1 students. So, I mean, on average, 2. So usually mentors will take 2 students, but I think the modality, if you will, it take 1 student. Some mentors will take 3 or 4. So it's like kind of like a bit of a right tail, if you will. But a lot of mentors take 1, a lot of mentors take 2, etc. Sangeeta asked a question about the preparation of the interview. Yeah, I would just say things that you're definitely going to face in the interview, just quick questions, are going to be things like, first of all, just can you introduce yourself? Introducing yourself in a way that is quick, clear, connected to research. You can talk about other parts of it. One mistake I see students make is that they introduce themselves in this interview or in any interview, the way they introduce themselves in any setting. So they'd be like, oh, I play violin. I'm part of like these things at school. That's okay. But I would suggest you think about tailoring your interview to the program. Like, what is it about research? What is it about your own interest that connects that research? Because that's really what we're looking for. The other thing that we'll look for is a connection to the work that you're interested in terms of the topic. And so I'll ask you, why are you interested in this field? And you should have a good answer for that. You should have an answer that you've thought through relatively structurally. Jeff has a question about mentor preferences. You can just send that to us at admissions@Lumiere Education, and then we'll put that into your file. So feel free to just send us that message. Okay. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to transition now to questions. It'll take me like 5 or 6 questions before we wrap up. I see a few questions. Some of these questions I've already answered, but some of them, make sure I get the new ones. Do students come in with their own topic or topics developed collaboratively? Yeah, so just quickly here, most students don't come in with their own topic. Usually you come in with like an area of research you're interested in, and then you work iteratively with the mentor in order for you to identify a research topic itself. What the mentor is doing is helping you kind of help guide you, help you understand what is possible to answer in the field, and essentially helping you avoid kind of like minefields, like, oh, don't ask this one. You're like never gonna be able to solve this in the next like 12 weeks. So it's really developed iteratively. The student provides like the interest and a lot of the work of like doing the research, and the mentor providing the context and also kind of the tactical steps of getting to the final research paper. I see a question on mentors. We have over 2,000 mentors part of the program. So there's a pretty deep range of mentors. For the interview, so ask about the Jones. For the interview rate, we don't invite everyone to interview. Usually we're inviting about, depends a little bit on the summer versus pro, but usually around half of candidates, a little more than half, will get to the interview. There, we're trying to make sure that like we think that you could, like most students who apply to the program are really strong academically. So we already have a really good baseline, but that cut is really like an academic cut, or we're just saying, hey, we don't think you could fit academically into the program. That's a pretty big cut. Oh, I see a question about sixth grade. Yeah, so then you'd be part of our Junior Explorer program. Sixth grade is totally appropriate. And the expectations are essentially, we can talk about that. I showed that a second ago, but for the JEP, essentially you're working with a mentor. The end product is maybe not a research paper. It's almost undoubtedly not a research paper, but it's something that's a bit more feasible for a younger student. We just saw there were a lot of students who wanted to get involved in research. It's certainly not the same level of rigor as the high school program by any means, but it's a kind of an end product that you're creating. The interview is, interviews there from 15 to 20 minutes, just to give you a sense of the length of time of the interview. Florian's asking a question about data analysis or hands-on engineering. So it really depends on the type of field that you're doing. If you are doing a field which is, let's say like engineering related, then you're likely doing something that's data analysis related or a literature review. Otherwise, you could be doing a qualitative interview that involves interviewing people or doing some type of simulation experiment. That's usually the other type of paper that we could see. Those are the four main types of research that we observe in the program. Incoming freshmen, if you think that they're at the level, certainly can apply for the high school research program. Totally, that's doable. If a candidate's not invited to the interview round, yes. So at any point we decide that you're not admitted to the next stage, we will let you know about that. Okay. Okay, see if your questions around, yeah, excellent question. I think excellent question about like tuition for the program. I think in general that, we've had, so one thing that we should include this in slides. We actually do a lot of work with admission offices. So in the past year, we've had over 40 sessions with different admission offices, ranging from U Chicago, UC Berkeley, UC Santa Barbara, Tufts. Like we just had a bunch of universities from Northwestern have come and spoken to our students, Caltech. And the reason they come and talk to our students is because we have really talented students. We're a pool of talent for them. And we also do it because we want to learn from them. Like, how do you think about research? How do you think about the program? And I think ultimately for admission officers, what we've observed, we actually commissioned a report on this also on our website as well, if you're interested, is that they're looking for what admission officers care most about is what have you taken from the research and how does it connect to who you are? That's what they care about. So if you're doing research, you're doing like a program, whether there's tuition, whether there's not, and it's kind of random, that's not going to be very useful for you. Like that's a pretty clear consensus. What really matters is how does the research connect to who you are and the story that you've done? And we've just seen that consistently both in our data and in our conversation with admission officers. So that's really what we've observed. So I would say you don't want to do this if it's just like a check the box type of thing. Like maybe that I would say that in general for things, but if there's something you're interested in and it connects to your story and you as a person, I think that's really quite powerful. And that can be quite useful for you as you think about telling your story when you're applying. Okay, see a few more questions. So someone asked about past research papers. Yeah, on our website, we actually have a list of different projects. You can go on there, just go past projects, and then there should be example papers that you can look at. I see a few more questions. There is, I see a question about certificate of completion. There is certificate of completion for sure. And then I see a question about financial aid. Yeah, so if you think that you have need for financial aid, let us know. You can send us a message there. We'll kind of evaluate you case by case. We might put you back into the financial aid program is a little bit more selective because we have slightly more limited spots, but we'll be we're happy to put you a message about that. Happy to send us a message and let us know about your financial situation. We can discuss about that. Certainly, we want anyone who we think could be admitted to the program to do research, so we're open to that as well. Okay. Okay, I see. I'm gonna answer, I think, 2 more questions. A couple of these answers I've already answered. One question I see is, can I change my topic if I've already applied? So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you're like really veering topics like dramatically, and you're like, you applied to do like pure math, and now you're like, actually, I want to do English or something, like, okay, yeah, then maybe email us and be like, actually, there's a pretty big change. If you're like, hey, I'm in biology and I was thinking about doing something related to, let's say, economics. You say, hey, I was really interested in doing something like in related to behavioral economics, but now I'm realizing actually I'm a bit more interested in labor economics or something. Like, let's say that's the change you're making. Just let us know. Oftentimes mentors are able to, like, you're not expected to have a research topic before you start the program. And so your mentor will work with you to navigate that research topic itself. And you spend some time in the first 4 weeks really identifying topics. There's a lot of flexibility that you have there as well. So I wouldn't worry too much. But again, if you want to switch like totally topics, totally fields, then let us know, because then the mentor matters quite a bit. Okay, final question. If admitted, can we change our selection of the program to longer? Yeah, you can. It's a little bit easier if you do it now, I would say. But yeah, you certainly can do it now. You can do it later if you'd like, but we just need that probably within the first 3 weeks of the program. That'll be my ask for you guys. Okay, guys, this has been a lot of me talking, but thank you guys so much for coming. It was really lovely. I love the activity and the questions. And if you guys have any questions, just send us. I'll also put my personal email here so you guys have it. And if you have any questions, you can also send it to me. I really hope you guys do research. I'm really passionate, of course, about what we do and about getting high school students and involved in research. So if you have any questions, anything you want to know, feel free to send me an email. But really appreciate you guys, and hope you guys have a great night. See y'all. Bye, everyone. Bye.